Is it
Hello,
live?
world. Welcome to the journalist chat tonight. Tonight we have a very special guest from different part of the world, and we have Sabrina Farooqui, refugee right advocate and junior vice president of Labor for Refugee, and we have Shahanoor Chowdhury, and who has been
Is
working
it
for
live?
a long time for the Rohingya peoples, and she's an independent consultant and medical anthropologist and gender professional. And we have an Amin bin Harun, who is an Rohingya human rights defender. Hello everyone, how are you? Refugee, and we have a Shahanoor Chowdhury, and who has been working. I think sound is
We can
reflecting.
hear you. Yeah, there
Uh,
is an echo. Yeah.
okay, so right now I think it's perfect. So Sabrina Farooqui, how are you? Are you hearing me?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, there was an echo there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah. So what is the present situation of there? Right, we know that in COVID and most of the people are facing a different problem. So that's why I first start from how are you? Like, what is the present situation there?
Yeah, so well, we are in a much better situation than the rest of the world. I'm in New South Wales. So I live in Sydney. We are not in lockdown, but obviously we are cautious of all the restrictions. Victoria is in a much worse situation, but New South Wales is much better. Like the schools are open, so yeah, we are okay here. We are obviously cautious of all the COVID issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So Shahan Akhtar Chaudhary, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so very much. Actually, we know that in Bangladesh from 25th, 4th of March, actually, there was a strict lockdown in, all over Bangladesh, and there were restrictions of movement between different districts. So I was actually homebound at the time. But Coxbazar situation is now a little better, and there's no lockdown as such. And the government, withdrawn the lockdown on 17th of August. So I came here about a month ago to do some work here, and I am again in here. I'm attending a program, wedding program of a dear brother, and as well as trying to do some work in between. Thank you so very much. And it feels like now we can breathe, although we are, maintaining all kind of precautions like wearing mask and, like sanitizing yourself and all kind of health and hygiene maintenance. We are doing that. But yeah, the city is now vibrant.
Yeah, and thank
Thank
you.
you.
Amir bin Harun, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, and yeah, we are under extreme boundaries, and yeah, we are surviving, and yeah, but we have to follow the rules and regulations of the government of Malaysia. So yeah, we are under SOP. It means that we are here in Malaysia, not fully locked down, but there is an SOP. It means you can travel across Malaysia, but you have to follow the rules of the government. And under the rules, yeah, you can go to the market, and you can, I mean, you can go to and you can travel. Yeah, but at at least, I mean, you have to follow SOP means the system of the government, and you can. There is no any lockdown such as you cannot go any higher. We
Yeah.
are still okay in Malaysia.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, everyone. I think this is why I'm asking the question is how are you? Because we know that during the time of COVID, a lot of things has been changed, and especially the when people are talking about like their mental health, and most of the people are facing a lot of problems. So today we'll most talk about the gender-based persecution and the human rights. How you talk about the human rights around the world, there's a different kind of perception, and people are talking about it in a different way. Today we have. One of the survivors, I mean, the Rohingya refugee, and we have, I mean, Mr. Amir, and we have Shahanoor Akter, and who is working the ground, and we have Sabrina Farooqui. So if I both of you ask both of you, like, if I first ask you, Sabrina Farooqui, you have been working for a long time, and if I ask you, like, what is mean to you, human rights?
Well, to me, human rights are the rights that are basically inherent to all human beings. So things like freedom of expression, then the right to express your opinion, right to work, education, all these are human rights. So all people should have access to this without any discrimination. So it's basically a life free from slavery, torture. And I believe everyone of this world should have all this right, regardless their age, race, gender, or social origin, everything. So it should be equal to all. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Shahanoor Chowdhury, if I ask you like what it mean to you, the human rights, because you had an experience with the people who, I mean, displaced from their own country and who were deprived from their lot of basic rights and since 1982. So when you have that experience, so what is mean to you as a human right? I mean, when I talk about the
Uh,
human rights.
Yes, I will talk a little bit outside from the textbook. I mean, for me, when I talk about human rights, it's basically I would see the rights to have all the basic, amenities and services like health, food, how home, livelihoods, and economic rights, as well as the right to movement, to move from one side to another. And the other thing is, right to have a life free from any kind of violence. And that also includes any kind of gender based violence and any gender based discrimination. So when we talk about the Rohingya refugees, they have faced those in their country, as well as when they came into Bangladesh and they crossed the border.
Thank you. So, Amit bin Harun, and we know that you are from one of the community like who has people has a different really experience and from your previous generations, and you migrated from one of the place, and when you was in Malaysia, and that time in your country, there's a lot of problem had happened. So when I ask you like, uh, what is mean to you human rights?
Human rights means to me is to look the way you look yourself to others, and human rights means you don't keep any boundaries just because you are living in a developed country, just because you are living in a independent country, and you are discriminating someone. This not and you are discriminating someone just because he's a refugee. So human rights means you just look the way you look for your family, the way you look for yourself, the way you look for your children, the way you look for your father, for your mother. If you can justify within your family, that can justify the same for all and for everyone. That's what I mean for human rights for equal to everybody.
Wow, and thank you. So today, we'll, if I just remind to the audience, like today we'll talk about the gender-based persecution and human rights. So Sabrin Farooqui, you were working with the Rohingya refugees and those who are working, those who are in Sydney and those who are living in Australia. So basically, what about your experience and from when you start to work with them and how you are really working because you are from the different community and in the meantime you are working with the Australian, I mean the Sydney government. So how you are basically working and what kind of difficulties you are facing to work with them.
Okay, I'll start with a brief introduction about myself. So, yeah, I'm working for the Australian federal government. That's my job. But I started working with the community about 4 or 5 years back. So I started working, it's always been my voluntary role. So I started helping refugees and asylum seekers with their settlement. And gradually I felt that these people need more support. So I started working more and more. Um, so what I found is because for my background and also for my community work, I saw the Bangladeshi community and other refugee community very closely. And I had a very like I started developing a good connection with the Rohingya community in Sydney. And I found that these people are really very helpless. So I wanted to help them more along with their settlement process. So my initial work was basically to help them finding jobs, writing CVs, those sort of things. So I've been involved in a number of not-for-profit organizations for refugee settlement. So I was helping them with those things. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I'm junior vice president of Labor for Refugees. What these Labor for Refugee does is it reforms the Labor Party refugee policy. So it always tries to make the policy better. So I raise these, like the team members of Labor for Refugee are absolute passionate about the refugee rights. So they lobby big time for the betterment of refugee policies, and they fight big time. So I felt really good to be a part of this Labor for Refugee team. And the point I raised for Rohingya community, those are the points I raised, and those are the concerns I raised. But Labor for Refugee gave me the platform to raise these issues to the policymakers. So as a team, we did lobby a lot of things. So a couple of things I will mention. So first of all, the community work I was talking about, that was basically with all refugees and asylum seekers, but with Rohingya community. I have done projects with women. For example, we provided free driving lessons, we taught English, then gave them positive parenting lessons. And in future, after this COVID restriction is eased, we will have more projects where we will teach them legal rights in Australia and many more things. So we have many projects in queue. And in the policy level, we we've lobbied big time for family reunion of refugee people. So what happens is every year under humanitarian visa, about 18,000 people arrive in Australia. So we were advocating to basically bring people who already have family members in Australia. So there are about 5,000 Rohingya people here, and 2,000, about 1,900 plus people. They are in temporary visa, or it's called temporary visa or chef visa. So these visas keep renewing. It's very uncertain. So they don't have refugee status here. So although they arrived before 2012. So these people are in uncertain situation. They don't see their families. So there is no hope of family reunion. But with the Labor for Refugees, we lobbied big time to bring people who have family members already in Australia. So that was one of the things we did from Labor for Refugees. And also we lobbied like in various times for one related to violence. We know that gender-based violence is there in the Rohingya community because Burmese military always used sexual violence as a weapon of war. And unfortunately, there are thousands of women who had this experience. And unfortunately, traditional Muslim community, they see, rape as a shame. So these women suffer twice. So this trauma, physical and mental trauma of rape and all sexual violence, and then afterwards this shame from the community and the isolation from the community. So uh, Australian government has a visa category. It's called Women at Risk. So under that subclass, we lobbied to bring women, Rohingya women, because and under this subclass, so women who are at the risk of persecution and who are recognized as vulnerable community by UNHCR, they can arrive. So in 2016-17, about 1,600 women came under that category, but none of them were, Rohingya. So we lobbied and advocated to bring Rohingya women under that category. So these are some specific Rohingya-specific, advocacy we did.
Sabrina Farooqui, I'll back to you again. So we'll go for to listen from the Shahanoor Akter and who is working in the ground. So Shahanoor Akter, you have been working inside in the Rohingya camp. So you're working for the gender rights and also for the human rights. And so, what about your experience to work with the refugees, especially the Rohingya refugees inside in the camp? And when you first came and first visiting the Rohingya camp, what was your mind? and today is like, I mean, you have experienced 3 years, and what basic things totally change in your mind?
Thank you very much for this question. And in retrospect, if I remember the day, it was 18th of December 2017. So I was on a outside trip outside the country for two official purposes. So I came back in Dhaka on 16th, and on 17th I joined Action Aid Bangladesh. I mean, this was the first time that I worked in humanitarian and emergency context. So the day I joined, and the very next day, I traveled to Cox's Bazar, just packed my bag, and I moved with some of my colleagues there, and we were in the field, in the camps to see the camps, and we were collecting some uh, stories, from the refugees, especially the women and those who were living inside the shelter. So the very first time I entered the camp, it was mind blowing. I mean, I never imagined how a camp should look like. I saw in the movies, like in different countries, but I never saw in my eyes how a camp looks like. So it was a very surprising and shocking stories. I mean, shocking for me, like the way they were living at that time. I mean, the camps were not very structured at that time. There were lack of many resources, like even as basic as your the day I went, and I was like, okay, so it felt like it's a different world. The world that I know, it was not like that. It's a whole different world. And I worked there at a stress for 2 years, first with Action in Bangladesh, and then with Save the Children International. And as you know, that they are both right based organization. And I worked with them, like literally uh, based in the field. Like in 2018, I went to the field almost every day. And at the time, I mean, our main priorities were, giving protection services towards women and young girls, especially adolescent girls. So our basic, protection services were done through, women-friendly spaces that we have, small spaces specially made for women and girls, so that they could come to those places. And it's like providing them psychosocial support in a different way, like involving them in different activities, different volunteer activities. And sometimes they just came and just relaxed there. So that was the time, I mean, when under my coordination, there were about 8 women friendly spaces funded by different donor organizations. And then with Save the Children, it's same, like we had child friendly spaces and different clubs for adolescent groups. So if I say, like, things have change, like if I stand here after 3 years, things changed in a great way, in a positive way. Like we are in Cox's Bazar, every activities is how to say implemented under intersector coordination group, and they have different sectors, subsectors who look after different issue. So this sector has been working very hard to provide services on the ground, and the services are more structured now. And I mean, quite regularly, the needs of different populations, like women, girls, boys, men, and even transgender population, the needs are analyzed and assessed, and we are trying to provide the services according to that. And Ms. Farooqui already told, the kind of experience that women had. It's not different here. I mean, I would say it's more intense, because they have left their country, they have lost their family members, and especially husbands, brothers, and fathers, and there are like, as you know, that more than 50% here are women and young girls and children. So in a way, the gender roles has shifted in a bigger way. Like women, most of the time in their country, I would still say in their country, in Myanmar, like they were uh, basically they stayed in the home looking after household activities, domestic chores. But when they came to Bangladesh and living in the camps, as most of them do not have any male family members, so women are more and more becoming responsible to maintain their family, in terms of like finding reliefs, getting food and other aids from the different organizations. So I would say in terms of changing gender roles, there has been a big shift. And I'll just add one more thing, like women and girls are now engaging in many kind of activities, like on the ground in the camps. There are like Rohingya volunteers, Rohingya field facilitators, those who work within their community as facilitators for the organizations that they provide services in the camps. And in terms of services, the referral pathway is also very structured now, which it was not there even in first year.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. And
Yeah,
I
I think
see,
this is a different kind of shift, man. Like if you ask, if you able to listen from the Amir, so I think Amir can have experience and Amir can share with us. Like, so Amir, you are from the Rohingya community, and you know that when the both of us are talking about the shift, man, and we know that inside in the when the people and the Rohingya people, they are their country. I mean, your country. So right now, when they are in the camp, so inside in Rakhine, what was the female role, and in Bangladesh, I mean, in the camp, and like what things really changed, and how outlook really changed, and what kind of thing you were thinking about. If you really share about the your story, like how your family members are surviving, and how your family members are living inside in the camp, or they're living in the other countries.
Okay, first of all, about the Rohingya refugee, about the Rohingya in back in Myanmar. Okay, the Rohingya back in Myanmar, we are under their family because in the Rohingya culture, their husband or their owner of the family earn income money and they spend all their income for their family and wife. Okay, this is the Rohingya culture in the back in Myanmar. But the problem is the government of Myanmar has put a strict restrictions on the Rohingya areas such as Mondo and Busino, all the Rohingya states. The Rohingya, especially the women, cannot play a role in the society just because this is underdeveloped countries. The way now we can see in Bangladesh, the women are working in the factories, in the medical, and other kinds of infrastructure, right? But back in Myanmar, you cannot see any kind of developed infrastructure or company that let work women's. They hire women's. There is no environment like this in Rakhine State. That's why the man and the owner of the family earn the money, and the wife and the children continue their livelihood. So the problem is that they in Myanmar they had no chance to enjoy the modern life. That's why they had to choose between their husband and their livelihoods. What they choose is they stay in their home under protective ways so that they can at least survive and they rest their children. And this is number one. Number two is most of the Rohingyas are mostly religious, so they feel like if they want their women, not everyone, okay, most of them are religious, so they feel like not letting the women go out is better because they feel this. I ask most of the Rohingya people, why you don't want let your women go work? Because if she works, you can share your income and so that your family can enjoy a beautiful life. But most of them says that my wife is my expensive gift from my God, and this is a diamond soap. I don't want to let this diamond see feel see by other people. Sometimes another main option is there. Rohingya community, there is no a strong system of security, right? Now we see in Malaysia and Europe there is security systems. The government put a strong security system. And still there is street harassment. But in refugee now you see in Bangladesh, okay, a beautiful women come out and working for refugees, and if people see her, then they will try to blackmail her or to harass her. So in order to protect her, there is no one to give security to her, right? So all matter is if you want Rohingya women work and take responsible for their family, the first thing is the security of their life. And the security, if you cannot provide them security and we just simply say, well, the women need to work, that is unacceptable because you see a beautiful woman come out and walk in and suddenly a person, this is
Amir, if I ask you, like, how your family are living? So how your family are living? They're living in the camp, or
yeah,
like,
my families are living in the my families mean my parents or my wife and my children. What do you mean?
yeah.
My
So
family.
we know that inside in the camp there's a lot of women, those who are working in the Rohingya women. Like we know the Rohingya model mothers and
Yeah,
Rohingya
yeah.
information
Still,
service
okay.
provider who are
Okay.
working, because that is sometimes when you ask to them, like they say that they don't get the chance to work. That's why they did not work, because right now here they are getting a chance to work. That's why they are working. Please continue.
Okay. First, in the country, if they had the chance to work, they can work because there is at least there is a protective way in their community, right? Now in Bangladesh, if you see, even it is very difficult to survive you cannot have everything in a refugee camp, right, the way you had in your own country, right? So I'm not complaining, but it is a way, but this is what we feel. Even if when I was a refugee, I feel I had to face the living conditions and the medical health care and education. Even you see people are you see refugees, wherever the refugees cannot access to educations. If you don't give educations, how you can empower women? They, if you, okay, empower women come from education. Okay, most of the Rohingyas are uneducated. Okay, so if you want to bring out the women, you have to educate them in a safe place where they are unharmed, right? So now the refugees living in Bangladesh are in an open space. Even who comes and who go would you know, okay? So many now the refugees are having lots of trauma in their hearts. Most of them lost their parents, their family. Everyone is having difficulties in their daily life. Now if now you see, now if you want the women work, then there is something restrictions because there is no security. Then the government of Bangladesh give granted security of, I think women can work. Even still, if women can work, there is no a proper way women can work because you don't have the you don't have any big. You don't have any hospital, something like. You just give women work like
Amir,
as a GG. NGOs are empowering women, but it is limited. So if you want to give more women the more work, you have to help them
Amir,
in a
Amir,
safest way.
yeah, thank you. Amir, I'll back to you. So if you back to the Sabrina Farooqui, like when Amir was talking about, because of that they don't get the chance, and because of the security and because of the other issues, that's why that you don't able to work. So when you were working with a group of people who were making the policy, and in a development country, like when you were working and you're providing the support to the people, basically what your experience like, this is the region actually women are not working, or if there any other region like they are not working, or they are deprived from this kind of implementation of this kind of access to work. Sabrina Farooq.
Yes, I think the first thing that was already mentioned is a cultural thing. That's what I saw because I wasn't aware of this culture before I started working with them. So I think it's a culture that men work and women don't work. That's one thing. Now, I also found some men, just few of them, who are interested about sending their wives to, job market here in Australia. I'm not sure if things were different back in their country. But the limitation they face is, first of all, English language. So their proficiency in English language is pretty low, although the government is providing 500 hours of free English language teaching. But there are various reasons for not having the skill. That's the other thing. And also social isolation. So what I found is this the Rohingya community is very much socially isolated community. So that actually makes it hard for them to get into job market. So these are the reasons I found. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So if I ask you like another question is when you were talking about you were engaging the refugees and working for the refugees. So what kind of policy basically you were making? Because when I conducted the interview of the Rohingya people, most of the Rohingya people they are saying like we are getting this kind of opportunities rather than if we get the chance to go back our country, if we get our own justice, and that will much more better than getting this kind of opportunity. So when you are making the policy and you are doing the work on that, so are you ever bring this kind of issues because you're also from Bangladesh and Bangladesh is facing this problem for a long time. So are you ever bring these issues in count to the government, like so that government can deal with and also make the relationship with the country so that that problem is going to be solved? I mean, way to solve.
All right, the opportunity we are creating is basically we are helping them to be independent, and more confident. So as I said, that when someone's English language skill is pretty low, it makes them less confident. That's why they are just limited to their own community. So because their kids are going to school and the second generation is growing up, but what I found is the first generation can't speak English. They can't even write a single line in English properly. So that's why we were providing them English language lessons so that they can feel more confident. They can communicate with non-Rohingya people in Australia. And also it will increase their job opportunities. So wherever you go in Australia, you have to at least speak some level of English, right, to get the job. And also, as I was saying, like free driving lesson. So that was driving lesson is very expensive in Australia, like per hour is $50. So we were providing free driving lessons. So that is basically, in short, we were creating job opportunities. So we were preparing them for job market. So that is
I mean, you
basically
are
what we
preparing.
are
I mean,
doing.
you are preparing for the. So basically, the way you are working, you are preparing for their capacity building and also
Yeah.
like and
Confidence
empowering
development.
the
Yeah.
confidence development inside in the country. I mean, so when I asked you the questions about like if there any way, like any policy you are doing, you were working or advocating, so that they're able to go back their country or like they will get the justice or this policy would help to get the justice. If there any kind of policy, like anything, so you were working like that, or like you were specifically working for the like their capacity building. Sabrin Farooqui.
Sorry, I apologize. I couldn't hear you properly the last bit, so I understood the work I'm doing
Yes,
here. So what do
yes,
you
yes.
want to know mainly?
Yeah, so I basically want to know, like, when you were talking about you are working one of the group who are making the policy. So they are making the policy for, like, I mean, give the justice to the Rohingya or like help them to get back their own land or just only working capacity building or confidence building.
Okay, yeah. So these are separate issues. So the policymakers, so the policy issue is separate. That is for refugees in Australia, refugees and asylum seekers in Australia. But the capacity building, that is separate. That is part of my community activity. So that is a capacity building work I'm doing, part of my community work. But when I'm talking about the policy, that is basically Australian refugee policy here, not international one.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I think so. So, Hein, if anyone want to come, anyone want to visit from the other country to the Australia, so I mean, on behalf of your responsibility. So, this is our working like if you are getting opportunity to stay in Australia, or like just those who are living this to Australia, you are working for them.
Yes,
Sabrin first.
exactly. So, yeah, I'm working for them to make their life better. And so that, job is a compulsory thing and human rights as well. So, yeah, to make their life better, I'm working. That's part of my community work. And the other thing with Labor for Refugees and Labor Party, we are pushing the government to make better policy on refugee issues.
Okay. Shahanoor Akter Chowdhury, like if I ask you, so right now the situation, like you have also the same experience when Rohingya people are saying about we this kind of ration or this kind of opportunity, and better that we want to go back our country, we want to get back our own land, because you know that a lot of Rohingya people are persecuted. And in the meantime, if I added another question, is a lot of stories is still undocumented, and the people say that Rohingya women, they are not willing to share their stories because they are feeling shy. And what about your experience on that?
Yeah, you are very right in saying that. I mean, being an anthropologist, I would say that, when we categorize different societies like open society, closed society, I would consider Rohingyas as very closed kind of society. They have very close culture. And when we talk about like why cannot they, share their stories, what I and we have experienced in the beginning, like the first thing was like trust. It took a lot of time to gain their trust because they had suffered for years after years in Myanmar. Like they were very suspicious about the outside world. Like how could this trust us? So it took a long time, and through those field level activities and awareness raising and closely working with them. So day after day we gained that trust. So trust is an issue. And if we say like there's another thing is language. We don't speak the language that they do, although the Chittagonian and the dialect of Cox's Bazar is like 90 to 95% similar to them. But when we came here, I mean, most of the humanitarian workers from outside Cox's Bazar. So language was another barrier. Like it was difficult to communicate among, ourselves. And the third thing is like, as I told before, that, now we have a very strong referral pathways and system. So we, I mean, when we talk about gender-based violence and any kind of sharing of stories of violence, we have a very strong guideline, or I would say very strong protocol that focuses on survivor-centered approach and ethical and safe referrals. And based on those protocols, like you cannot easily go and ask someone about their experience. So it's only when they want to share with us. So like that also falls that not everything can be shared. And when one person don't want to share, we cannot push them, we cannot influence them. So they have the full liberty whether they want to share or not. So that's another thing. And also like you know the intersector coordination group, the way it works, and there are some kind of conflicts with the way government works. Like we have camp in charge who are government officials who are posted in camps to look at the law and order situation. But at the same time, the humanitarian actors or workers who work in the camp, it's not easy to share any information with the government. Like we follow the protocols, whereas the government sometimes tells that if you have any information about violence, you have to tell us. So there's some kind of conflicting situation between the NGOs and the humanitarian workers and the way government works. And yeah, I mean, although we are bringing a lot of change in terms of getting the trust and getting the trust, I would say we still need to work a lot. I mean, they're still not like 100% trusting on us because they still consider they want to go back to Myanmar when the things
Yeah, I
are
think
all right.
I think they
So
have their
they don't
own
really want
demand.
these
Like, yeah,
camps
I think they
as
have
their
their own demand if
base
they if it
or
will
their
require.
homeland.
Like,
They still miss
yeah.
their homeland. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the time they're talking about their own demand. Like, if anyone like fulfills their demand, then they will go back their country. So Amir, if I ask you like, when Sabrina Farooqui are talking about like they're making the, I mean, confidence building, capacity buildings, and like Shahanoor after Chowdhury are talking about like gender rights, and also like undocumented stories, like also their confidentiality. So if I ask you, as a Rohingya you are, what basic need you have? I mean, what is the basic need for you people right now, and what things you really need right now for
The
your own
first
community?
thing, the first thing is people can survive if they cannot eat. Okay, 2 days or 3 days. Okay, this is a this is a, I mean, this is a period of time you need to to have, you need to have starvation, all right. And if you don't have a medical, however you can survive. Okay, all the matter is if you don't have education, you cannot survive. Even after 100 years you have to face all this problem. Okay, all now is Rohingya refugees need education. Now you can see the youth are the main power to change their community. All right, even the older people will listen to the youth, okay, to the young generation. So now what we Rohingya needs is the education. Wherever the refugee Rohingyas are, they don't have the opportunity to access to educations. If any government, any hosting countries open the border for education to the Rohingyas, they will improve themselves. No other third party needs there to settle their problem. If you let them study, they will study, they will see all the books, they will see the women Nobel laureate women who achieved Nobel Peace Prize. They will study, women themselves study, and they will work, and they will follow the role model of women. Now if you just empower some uneducated women, there is still the problem is there. What matter is you bring the young generation and educate them. Okay, when you educate them, they will go to their mother themselves, explain to your mother, this system is this way you have to follow, you can walk, and you can do this. Okay, their children will go, when their children and their daughter will explain them, they will not feel shy, and when their husband will explain them, they will not feel shy, right? So all the matter is we need to have for the older people, older educations. Okay, I mean for the women education. I mean and all the main thing is education for young generation. I mean the youth who completed their graduation in Situ University. I mean who completed class 10 in Myanmar. Now they are just become unemployed here, and even if they are educated, after few years or 10 years they will be live. uh, uh, I mean, they will be just a burden for the world, right? Now, if the government of Bangladesh, I mean, open the border for them to learn education, today you will see them championing the world, and they will be like you and like me. This is how we need to do for refugees. That's it. What I can do, I
Yeah, I
can
think
say.
I think this is the more the policymaker can more answer, because there is some restriction, as also there's just some issues
Yeah.
like when opening the border, because Bangladesh is in one of the country where like itself has a few of the problems, and in the meantime like dealing with this kind of bigger issues. So Bangladesh all the time asking and seeking the like help for the development country. So in this
Okay.
sense, when Bangladesh are
For,
talking about like the your country are providing the donations or providing the lot of things, but in the meantime why you are not taking back, like why you are not bringing the thousands of people, thousands of Rohingya in your country? So when this kind of question is arising, Sabrina Farooqui, if I ask you like how, I mean, what is the mentality of the Australian government or the people of development country, how they are thinking about the refugees,
About the Rohingyas.
about the Rohingyas especially?
Well, Australia gave a big amount of donation. It is one of the biggest donor countries. But in terms of bringing Rohingya people here, we haven't played a significant role. So that is something I'm pushing for through Labor for Refugees, that the humanitarian program should be non-discriminatory. Well, although the UNHCR recognizes Rohingya as the most vulnerable community, but we haven't played a significant role in sorting it out. So we haven't brought many Rohingya people under humanitarian visa. We can do more. And if Labor comes to power, I believe that the humanitarian program will be absolutely non-discriminatory. So yeah, we should have more people under the humanitarian visa.
Yeah. Thank you. Amir, yes, you wanted to say something. Please, if you can continue. The
I
last.
mean, okay. What I wanted to say is, I personally congratulate and thank to the government of Bangladesh. I don't want to comment on politics, but what I want to say is the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Ms. Sheikh Hasina. Okay, she opened her arms and welcomed all the refugees when they are facing genocide in Myanmar. Bangladesh has played a vital role, a wonderful role in controlling the refugees crisis. So all the thanks should go to the Bangladesh. If there is no Bangladesh to the refugee, has no one to listen what they have to say. Now you see, now we have millions of refugees in Bangladesh. Why we can speak out? Because there is a country that gives them a voice to speak out. But I thank the government of Bangladesh. Still, I also want to request at the same time, if the Bangladesh allow refugees to study, they will even be proud, and they will never forget these contributions and this love for refugees, and they will always keep it in their heart. The way now Bangladesh people keep their love for India, right? When India sheltered them, when there was a refugee crisis, India loved them. The way now Bangladeshi people are loving Indian, because once when they had a problem, they loved them. Same here, you can feel from us. Now we have a problem. I mean, the tragedy we are facing will never be forever until the destruction of the world. There is a, even now the Hitler, the situation of Hitler is already gone. Okay, any situation that we can see will not be tomorrow. Okay, so somehow we are allowed to go back to our country, and we will keep this love forever for Bangladesh.
Amir, if I ask you, like, you are also working as a human rights defender in Malaysia. So
Yeah.
basically, what kind of work you are doing? A lot of Rohingya living in the different country, like more than 47 country has a Rohingya organization, different organization. So how you guys are working for getting back your country, and how you are working?
Okay. There actually the government of Malaysia has opened their every I mean every diplomatic ways for refugees, for actually even if they have any high level diplomatic meeting, they invite Rohingyas, so we share our ideas with them, so they come together and share their way of looking a solution for refugees. Every country is looking for refugees to have a solution, right? It's been already more than now for me. I am a refugee by birth now. Now already I am having 30 years in refugee lifestyle. Everyone is looking for a solution, but the solution they cannot find is in education. If 30 years they give the refugees to access to education, today they can see lawyer, engineer, doctor, and everything. They don't need to worry. The lawyer and the doctor and the engineer will give them the idea how to take back their rights. Now today we cannot do anything, because we are being kept blinded. We are not allowed to learn education. See, the government of Myanmar have put Rohingya for many decades without educations. We have been facing this kind of systematic restrictions under the government of Myanmar. Now we in charge of who we fled to other countries. Still the same thing what we wanted is education. Still this thing is are not available there. So if these countries who are playing a hostile role for Rohingya refugees should give refugees access to education. Now you see the people going to Europe, okay, the Rohingya are resettling to European countries. They are they are giving opportunity to Rohingya children to go to school. Now you can see, I can see most of my friends are studying lawyer and pilot and doctor. See, this is if you give opportunity to the underprivileged people, you will see people are going to be educated. That's why
Uh,
if they
Thank you, Amir. So, Shahanoor, if I ask you, like, regarding the issues when Amir was talking about, right, they need the educations and they need the education opportunities, and when Sabrina Farooqui was talking about, like, if the Labour Party will be elected, so some policies will be more improved and they'll get the more chance, if you get the more opportunities. And regarding the issue also getting back their land, so there will be some further issues will be happen. So, what about your perception as a Bangladeshi you are, and you are working inside in the ground and working for the Rohingya community? So, what is the more difficulties and what the more key point we need to figure out regarding both of the issues?
So your question is towards Ms. Farooqui or to myself?
No, no, to you,
Oh,
Shana Akhtar,
okay,
to you.
okay. Thank you. I mean, I was when Amir Bhai was talking, I was very patiently hearing that. Amir Bhai, if you have known that, in addition to health and water and sanitation, education is one of the big sector where government and non-government organizations are working very closely. And the main focus, as you said, like they have been deprived and discriminated against education for decades. So what we and the government is trying to build the capacity of the Rohingya children and we are providing non-formal education, and very recently the government has a new education policy for the Rohingya children who live in the camps. So in that way we're trying to give them like primary level education in English. I mean, there are three or four subjects where the education will be provided on English, basic numeracy, literacy, and also teaching them in Rohingya language as well as in English. So government is trying, I mean, is focusing on that area, because if and when they go back to Myanmar or any other country, so that they can use that, skills and educational skills for further their development. So I am not so negative about that, but as there is a legal aspect of Rohingya refugees, like as far I know, they have not yet given the status of refugees, so government cannot allow them to have the basic rights like other citizens of the country. So I'm not a legal part, I don't want to talk about that, but I would say that we are giving a lot of emphasis on educating the not only the Rohingya children, also through the those spaces like women friendly spaces that I talked about. We are providing basic literacy and numeracy skills, so that the women who come to these spaces learn something for their own betterment, and to help them build their confidence.
Yeah, in the meantime, as my experience, I also know that like there's thousands around CFS child-friendly space, and also that Lucent Club, and also the different women-friendly space like has a WLCC, different kind of programs is going on for the literate the Rohingya peoples, and also different capacity building programs. And we are already on the way to end of the show. If I'll ask both of you, like Sabrina Farooqui, if you want to say something to the audience, I think that will be amazing.
Sure. I think the international community should continue their support for Rohingya within and outside of Myanmar, and basically expand their search for durable and peaceful solution, which is much needed now. And efforts must be redoubled, and basically to encourage Myanmar to create the conditions necessary for the safe and sustainable return of Rohingya refugees. The whole process of repatriation should be definitely transparent.
Yeah. Amir, if you want to say something to the audience or any final comments.
uh, what I want to say is, my dear friends, and especially thank you, I mean, doctor from Australia and doctor from Bangladesh for talking about Rohingya. You know Rohingya, I'm proud of you. I'm really happy about this. You know about Rohingyas, about my community, okay? And for my friends who are watching us, my dear friends, Rohingya are refugee now, but before becoming refugees, they had their wife, their family, their schools, their own businesses, their properties, their agriculture. All they had everything. They had enjoy a beautiful life. They have their own community. But today, they become refugees in your country. That not does not means you can underestimate them. You can feel less. First of all, we need to feel other as human being. If we don't know to feel others as human, then we are not fully humanitarian. If we want to justify ourselves as a human being, we have to serve other human being the way I serve my family. So, in conclusion, I want to say that never hurt a refugee, because you don't know what is his future tomorrow. If you face the same problem, the past refugee will come to help you. This is what the circulation of human being. So let's come and enjoy this beautiful world. Together we share, together we develop the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shahanoor Chowdhury. Any final comments?
Mhm. Thank you so much, Shuja, for arranging this lively conversation, and my friends and colleagues from different parts of the world. So, as time passed by, I mean, the needs of the Rohingya population in the camps get a different, phase. Like, as for instance, the recent COVID situation changed the whole picture of the service provision in the camps. So there will be different needs, different priorities, some urgent, some long term. But what I want to tell to the, my Rohingya brothers and sisters in the camps, don't lose hope. Like there will be a time when you will go to your homeland, the place that you consider your home. And for ourselves, like we, the humanitarian workers who have been in the, working with this population for about 3 years now, we should also not lose hope. We should work, I would say, we should work harder so that we can at least provide something for the betterment of the Rohingya population. Thank you so very much.
Wow,
Thank you.
thank you, Shahanoor, and thank you, Sabrin Farooqui, and thank you, Amir Hussain. So I think that was really wonderful discussions, and I think this is a time where we should think about the human rights. We should think about the people, and this is a time, even especially during the time of COVID, and we feel like we need to be stay beside with the people as a human being, and we need to be think and also respect the people, those who were human beings. And this is the time every people need to stay together and need to work together. So bye bye for tonight, and thank you everyone for joining tonight. And I think I'll back to with another guest from another part of the world. Bye bye for
All right.
tonight, and thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.